it's well documented the strength of Aidan's 2-year-olds this year. I think he's had over 50 individual 2-year-old winners this year, but I think he's sending the C team, not even the B team.
I think I'm going to agree with Jane on this one. Steady, Jane.
For me, I think it's an inspired move to supplement her, and at the current odds, you could probably even back her each way as well. Hello and welcome to Inside Track, brought to you by William Hill, where we'll be previewing a wonderful weekend of action, both in Great Britain and in Ireland. It is the third of the 4-day St Leger Festival at Doncaster, featuring the St Leger itself and, of course, Irish Champions Festival, Leopardstown on Saturday, featuring the Royal Bahrain Irish Champagne Stakes. We're going to be previewing 5 races in the company of William Hill Ireland Ambassador Jane Mangan and former top jockey Louis Steward. And we're going to be giving our naps of the day as well. But before we do, we have a very special offer for you. It's right here in front of me. It's a top price guarantee for the first ITV race of the day, which on Saturday, this Saturday, is the 150 at Doncaster. It's a top class race for 2-year-olds. It's the 7 furlong Champagne Stakes. Now, William Hill offered more top prices on horse racing in June, July and August than any other major bookmaker. That's been confirmed by Odds Checker, and that is proper value. So let's start our preview with that top price guarantee race, the Champagne Stakes. And Louis, I'm going to give you first pick.
Thank you, Nick. Big player in this race for me is Wolf of Banadoc. I really like this horse. He ran a lovely race first time out of Doncaster with Jamie Spencer. I thought Jamie Spencer was actually very tentative on this horse, let him find his feet in his own time and really picked up nicely on the far side of the track. He then ran in the Vintage Stakes and, given kind of a classic Jamie Spencer ride, held up at the back of the field. Not saying that the field slipped away from him, but he done his best work late on, Nick. And I like the way he finished that race. And I think if he was probably slightly close to the pace, he'd have finished a lot closer to the winner that day. And also the third in that race actually won at York the time after. So the form stacks up well. Jamie Spencer now knows this horse. He knows him very well now. And I think a track like Doncaster will just suit this horse's turn of foot.
Totally understand what you're saying. I actually tipped the horse, Jane, at Goodwood, and couldn't believe how close he finished, given how unbalanced he was on the track. And he's the highest rated of those with a rating so far. Do you like him, or are you going elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm all in on him. It's not often Louis and I agree, but I think we're starting on good terms. Let's see how this podcast finishes up. There's 2 Ballydoyle prospects in here. It's well documented the strength of Aidan's 2-year-olds this year. I think he's had over 50 individual 2-year-old winners this year, but I think he's sending the C team, not even the B team, across for the Champagne. And I think this can often be a race when you look back on the Roll of Honour. You have Tornado, Too Darn Hot, Chaldean. You can often meet a really good one in here, and I know plenty of them have the Dewhurst entry, plenty of them have the Futurity entry. But when I look at the likes of Monumental, I can pick holes in his form because I don't think he's as good as Ides of March, who beat him at the Curragh. I think Chancellor is a bit of a head case. I think Bay City Roller is a nice horse, but do I see him as a proper Group 1 prospect? Probably not. So right there, right now, is probably the unknown quantity after a really dominant display on debut at Newmarket. But for me, Wolf of Badenoch was left in the National Stakes here at the Curragh until the very last forfeit stage. They've opted to go for the Group 2, and I think it's going to pay dividends.
All right, well, you're both with Wolf of Badenoch, we're told it's pronounced now, aren't we? Hasn't Kemi Badenoch told us there's no bad in Badenoch? Anyway, whatever it is. This isn't the right forum for politics. You both like Wolf of Badenoch here. I'm going with Right There, Right Now. It's actually not, it's Right Here, Right Now, isn't it? Beg your pardon. I'm not a Fatboy Slim fan. Now, the form, there are some mixed messages. The 2nd, 3rd and 4th have all run since. None of them have won, but they've all run very creditably, and they all stepped up on that form against good company. He absolutely walloped them. And I just think in a race that could be a little bit thin, I think he should be favourite. And he'll be the one for me right here, right now, in that top price guarantee race, the Champagne Stakes. which takes place at 150. It's a Group 2 race. Now, let's move on then to the 225. It's the Portland Handicap, great marquee handicap. 5.5 furlongs is the distance here. It's an extra place race as well, with William Hill playing 6 races each way instead of 4. And Louis, I'm going to give you first pick. Nobody said this was easy, but it is a specialist distance. Who do you like?
Yeah, it's not an easy race for sure. I actually won this race back in the day on a horse called Steps for Roger Varian when I was a young man, Nick. It's a very tricky race to win. Obviously, you normally get them split into 2 groups. And as we all know with these big handicaps, it kind of does pay dividends to be on the pace side. A horse I like in this is called Cover Up. I think he was quite unlucky last time out at York. He is quite a free-going horse, which means he has a high cruising speed and he plugs on late on throughout his races. Now, I know you can look at his form and say he's maybe not got no 1s and 2s next to his name, but the kind of winning distances of his last 2 runs have not been far at all. 1 3/4 lengths and 2 1/4 lengths. So he is a nice horse going forward. Obviously, this is a very much a cavalry charge of a race. There's plenty you can make a case for, including a horse called Apollo 1. He runs in these races week in, week out, and he's normally not too far away. So he's a horse, again, that has a very high cruising speed, and I think this slightly shorter distance might suit him too.
Jane, I'll come to my reasons for liking Apollo 1 in a minute, even though he hasn't won for an eternity. Who do you like here? I mean, Chagrin has been in fantastic form. Is there any reason to think he won't run well again for a stable that's done well in this race before?
No, he should run well because he's only £3 higher. I thought the handicapper was quite generous to him, but like a lot of these, he turns up to a lot of these dances every fortnight and rarely actually hits the back of the net, but often runs a solid race. So he's probably a bit short in the market for me, given he's top here with 22 runners and it's such a competitive race. Al Bashir's in there, Cover Up, as Louis already mentioned, but I actually like a horse called Bergerac, who finished 6th in the JM Jungle Chagrin York race over 5. He's been dropped a pound. He's running off 90 here, he won off this mark last autumn, 12 months ago, and I think from gate 14, it'll give his jockey Tom Eaves a few options whether he wants to go left or right. But JM Jungle, again, it's worth noting, £4 higher from winning quite impressively at York. But for me, I think it's Bergerac. It's his time, it's his turn. He's solid. He won at Newcastle back in June, but I think he's going to run a big one here.
Well, I'm going to refer back to Louis earlier, who talked about Apollo 1. I think 5.5 furlongs might actually be spot on for him. And he's got Christophe Soumia on in him as well. Could be a bit of magic there. But I accept anyone's contention that he's not necessarily a bankable win proposition. So I think at a bigger price, I'd be prepared to chance Aberama Gold here, who's got some really good form back in the book. He's about a stone lower than he was at the beginning of the season. And I think he's just basically been waiting for a genuine bit of cut in the ground. Last time he had it at Ripon, back in June, he actually ran very well. I don't think there's a marked sign of deterioration in this horse, and now he gets his conditions, and he's about a stone lower than his last win. So Aberama Gold for me, for Mark Wynne and David O'Mara in the Portland, and he's a big price as well. So we're going to go to Ireland now, to the Matron Stakes. That takes place at 250 Leopardstown, and it really is a very strong-looking edition of this race. Porta Fortuna has done so little wrong in her whole career, let alone this season. She's massively adaptable as regards ground, but she takes on Fallen Angel here. Fallen Angel, who is now running in the colours of Watnan Racing. William McCreary's got 2 pretty exciting fillies in here. Joseph O'Brien fancies Rogue Millennium to bounce back to form. Jane, do you fancy any of those?
I think Porta Fortuna is probably the most underappreciated horse of the season so far. She had Group 1 form as a juvenile. She won a Group 1 as a juvenile. She's ran in 3 Group 1s this year, and she's only been beaten a neck in the Guineas, and she's won the Coronation, and she routed them in the Falmouth. She is justifiably top of the market, and I see for Fallen Angel, it's a big ask for James Doyle. We know James Doyle is world class, but you have to take it in the fact that this is his first time getting on her. It's around a left-handed bend. It's just going to be a little bit of a different test for her and a new territory for her jockey. It's worth noting, if you're into the older fillies like Vespertilio or Rogue Millennium, the 3-year-olds dominate the matron. 8 of the last 9 runnings have gone to the 3-year-olds, and it looks like they're holding all of the aces here. Ylang, Nick and I have history with Ylang. She's going to have to, I think, produce even beyond a career best to get involved here. And I'd say Tom Marquand was absolutely delighted when Aidan O'Brien declared Ryan on Ylang Ylang so that he could get back on Porta Fortuna. Worth mentioning, Billy Lee would have had a choice to make with the Willie McCreary pair. Vespertilio, her run behind Fallen Angel at the Curragh was solid. She has a length and a quarter to find there. Her run at Deauville, probably inconvenienced by the way the race had turned out. She's better than that result. But Jancis is 2 from 2, and she's half the price. Jancis, not many people will be familiar with her. She went off with a big price on debut at 40-1, and she absolutely hacked up at the track. Same course and distance. She goes back for the Brownstown, the Group 2, and she comes from nearly last to first. She has a really good turn of foot, and I don't know if anybody actually knows where Jancis's ceiling lies. So just keep her in the back of your mind. Long story short, Porta Fortuna for me is my nap. And I think now if she is impressive in this, she will finally get the credit she deserves.
All right, Louis, Porta Fortuna. Again, she wins, and she wins Group 1s for fun, but regularly she just slips under the radar. She heads the market here. How strong do you reckon her opposition actually is?
Yeah, it's a tricky one to say, and it's very hard to go against Porta Fortuna. What she's done last year and this year has been pretty exceptional, but there's a little something inside me just saying that Fallen Angel could be something very special. She's the fresh horse coming into this race. I spoke to James Doyle yesterday, and he said that he was advised by Danny Tudhope not to go and sit on her because she is that so straightforward and she doesn't do much at home. All these signs kind of suggest that when she flopped in the Guineas, maybe she was a horse that needed the run at Newmarket and come good in Ireland. So maybe this slight break is not going to do her the world of good if she is quite a laid-back individual at home. But I know Danny Tudhope did say to James Doyle that she is the most straightforward filly in the world. So there's not too much pressure on James, I don't think, in order to try and figure out too much on the day in riding her to post. So I think it's going to be... I'm hoping she's basically 99% fit and she can show her best. She's got a very nice running style. She's normally up on the pace with a nice turn of foot. So I think if Fallen Angel can reproduce the Irish Guineas form, then I think she'll be bang there.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting race. I do think Rogue Millennium can take a step forward, and I appreciate that a lot of people will be very frustrated with how she's been running since the switch of yards, but she did run her best race in the Matron last year. She seems to be cycling back to a big effort for me, getting a little bit better with each run. And a strongly run mile is likely to be what she gets here. And the ground, I think, is just going to continue just to tighten and tighten. For me, Rogue Millennium is the bet at odds against the highly touted 3-year-olds in the Matron Stakes, which takes place at 2:50 at Leopardstown on Saturday. Now, the main race in Ireland on Saturday is the 3:25, the Royal Bahrain Irish Champion Stakes. What an intriguing race it is, because you've got all these talented Ballydoyle horses in there, including last year's winner August Rodin and runner-up Luxembourg, and, of course, this very exciting young talent that is Economics, and whether he can confound the might of Ballydoyle. And that is the question we must put to our Irish ambassador, Jane Mangan, first. Jane, what do you think? Do they keep it at home, or does the fortress get breached by this talented, young, strapping chestnut son of Knight of Thunder from Newmarket?
I'm on the Economics train, and I think it's going to be a huge test of horse, but of
You feeling okay?
It's going to be a huge test of Tom Marquand, because Ballydoyle field half the runners, and we know they'd like to keep Leopardstown a difficult place for the opposition. We've seen it with See the Stars, we saw it with Golden Horn, we saw it with Roaring Lion. And Tom Marquand, you can watch all of those replays and you will know Luxembourg and Hans Andersen will be keeping you honest, and keep an eye on where Ryan is. And don't forget Los Angeles, even though I don't believe on this ground he has the turn of foot required to win over 10 furlongs. I think Economics could be a monster. They skipped Epsom. He was wide. He probably needed the run at Deauville, and the way the race panned out, I think he did well, because Sean Levy was very clever on JRB and he still managed to beat him comprehensively. So I am on Team Economics. Everybody has their opinion on Auguste Rodin. I do think that he will probably bring his A game, and you're questioning whether his Breeders' Cup effort or last year's effort when he beat Luxembourg is good enough. I don't know if it is, because I thought Luxembourg should have won last year. And with that in mind, I know there's cheek pieces now going on Luxembourg. I think it's a little bit of a travesty to use a horse of that ilk, of that ability, as a pace setter. Shin Emperor, great to have him in here, but he isn't really Group 1 class in Japan, and the handicapper has given him over here a mark of 115, which leaves him £5 shy of Luxembourg, £6 shy of Economics, and 7 of Auguste Rodin. So yeah, I think it's going to be massively tactical, a huge test. Great also to have Ghostwriter in there, who brings the Juddmonte international form to the table. But William Haggis and Tom Marquand will have a long chat, and hopefully the tactics A, B or C come off.
And this is it. You mentioned Shin Emperor, Jane. Connections have already said this is a prep race for the Arc. Connections of Los Angeles have said this is a prep race for the Arc, if indeed he runs in the Irish Champion Stakes. We know that this is a race that's been carved out all season for Auguste Rodin, the defending champion. We know that it's been carved out for most of the summer for Economics. Louis, where are you going here?
I think I'm going to agree with Jane on this one. Steady, Jane. Economics just looks like the horse with the most untapped potential. He's a big raw horse still, I think, and there's still a lot left under the bonnet. How good he could be still yet to kind of been discovered, but I just think he has all the ammunition to fire at this race. I think William Haggis has trained this horse beautifully. A lot of people give him stick for missing the Derby, but it's clearly all working to plan. And sometimes these horses need a bit more time to mature, and Epsom can definitely be a track that can throw a few spanners in the work. So I think the training regime this horse has gone through and the way he's been placed has been perfect. And another horse I would say at a bigger price for me would have been Ghostwriter. I think Ghostwriter is a strong traveller. He can get himself up in a nice, handy position from stall 2. And I don't think we're seeing the best of this horse yet. Clive Cox goes on about this horse, how good he is at home. So I'm sure he'll have his day in the sun at some point. And like Jane has mentioned, Auguste Rodin, if he does turn up, Nick, he can really produce something special. But again, it's that if with Auguste Rodin.
Yeah, who is the real Auguste Rodin right now? We'll certainly find out on Saturday, where there are likely to be few excuses, save for potential improvers like Economics and Ghostwriter. And for me, the bet in the race is Ghostwriter. I think Louis got it in one. I think the form from both Sandown and York perhaps is being slightly underestimated. He keeps improving. He likes the sound surface. He'll like the track. And with everybody watching the sexy horse, he might just get left alone a little bit. And it could be that he'll be a horse that's underestimated by both his rivals and the market. And I think, therefore, he rates something of a play. Now, the St. Leger takes place at 3:40 at Doncaster. It's the world's oldest classic horse race. And again, Aidan O'Brien fields half the field. But bit by bit, the race has become a little bit more interesting than it threatened to be, because we've got the Irish Derby runner-up and the King George IV, unlucky at Ascot as well, Sunway. And, of course, we've got Dear Mile, the Derby fourth for Owen Burrows. And we've got the filly supplemented at the 11th hour, You Got To Me. So what threatened to be a somewhat uninteresting race has now become quite an interesting race. Still, however, Louis, can any of them lay a glove on Illinois, Grosvenor Square and Jan Bruegel?
Well, look, Illinois, this should be the race perfectly set up for him. He's been tried over a mile 6 once and won. Like I probably think about the ground, is it going to be a bit too soft for him? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to hinder his chances. I really think this horse just is an out-and-out stayer with a slight bit of class. I don't think he's not a horse that's going to go and quicken away and probably win by 3 or 4 lengths, but he is a real galloper, and I think that is kind of what you're going to need for a race like this. It's probably set up to be quite a fast run, St. Leger this year. I think Dear Mile with blinkers on first time is going to go and make use of them and go forward. By Camelot, he should stay also, but I've just got a special place in my heart for You Got To Me. I think Rafe Beckett is really getting the hang of this filly now, and with the tongue tie on applied for different reasons other than her wind, it really helps her settle and Hector kind of get grips on her to just run her race the right way round. And she stayed last time we see at York. That was not a problem, and I just think she might have that slight class edge over a few of these if she is to get the mile 6 within her reach, which I think she will.
Jane, are you going to keep this simple or look elsewhere beyond Illinois?
I'm going to go for the mare. And I really hope Dear Mile doesn't take on Grosvenor Square on the front end, because that would be suicide. Grosvenor Square will make the running, and anything going faster than him will be going too fast. The mare has class. I think Sunway has class. I think they're the two genuine classy horses in the race. But you have to ask yourself, would Jan Bruegel, would Illinois, or would Grosvenor Square win a Group 1 over a mile and a half? I think the honest answer is no. And I think she will stay. She's out of a Galtrays winner by Nathaniel. I don't see why she wouldn't. I think she's learning to race. I think she can follow the pace, and Hector Crouch can use Ballydoyle to his own benefit. So Christoph is a fantastic booking, I think, for Sunway, who is a very good horse. But I think You Got To Me is better.
I think that You Got To Me is a very talented filly, and I think she'd have won the Yorkshire Oaks had she been over on the far side of the course. I don't think it was any fault of Hector Crouch's. I think that's where he had to go. He had to follow Emily Upjohn into the race, but Ryan was then allowed to do his own thing. And I think if she'd eyeball content, she'd have won the extra 2.5 furlongs. Surely going to be bringing about improvement with brushing a stout mare as the dam and as a half sister to Ziggy. And for me, I think it's an inspired move to supplement her. And at the current odds, you could probably even back her each way as well. So I'm going You Got To Me as well in the St. Ledger at 340. Right, let's rattle through the naps then. Jane, I think you've already hinted at what your nap might be.
Yeah, I'm going to pour it for Tuna to finally get the accolades she deserves in the Matron Stakes by making it Group 1 win number 3 from 4 runs in her current 3-year-old year.
Louis?
Straightforward, a Spencer special, Wolf of Badenoch in the Champagne.
All right, well, I don't know if I'm allowed to take you on, but I'm going to, because I'm going to go for right here, right now in the Champagne Stakes. Any horse who pulls that hard and still wins a decent little race at Newmarket by 5 has got to be decent. I don't think this is the deepest Group 2 that's ever been run. So there are naps for Saturday. That brings an end to this William Hill preview of Saturday's races. Huge thanks to Jane, our Irish ambassador, and to Louis for their insight, and a reminder of William Hill's top price guarantee offer for that 150 race at Doncaster Champagne Stakes that we previewed a little earlier on. Thank you very much for watching. What do you think of our picks? We are broad-shouldered enough to take your criticism and take your disagreement. Who's your nap of the day? That might be more relevant than all of this. If you think it is, just let us know in the comments. Thanks again for watching our Inside Track preview show. If you'd like to watch a previous episode of our debate show, and they are lively, the debates as well, click the link that is on the screen. This show was brought to you by William Hill, 18+. Please gamble responsibly.